Hi there, I'm Cordy, and I have another cool sketchbook project I want to share with you. I want to draw squiggle people with you today and to give them a really cool playground. So let's get started. Squiggle people are basically stick figures that are squiggled in, that have a little bit more flesh on them. And when you draw them, you don't even have to start out with a stick figure. You can just squiggle on and fill them in. Here are a couple of examples of moving and dancing squiggle people. And for our project, I want to create a playground for them with you. And it's going to look something like this. So we can actually practice our shading as well. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need 3 different pencils, an HB, 2B, and 4B one. And obviously an eraser. I like to use this little pen eraser for the really fine bits, but you can also use just a normal eraser, and also a paper stump will come in handy, but you can also use your fingers. So before we get drawing, let's have a little practice at shading. Shading means creating a gradient from a really dark color to a really light version of it. In our case, it's gray. So that's why we have 3 different pencils. I always like to use the lightest one, the HB one, and sort of create a base. Then next, over the next layer, is the 2B one to make it a little darker on one side, and 4B really comes in for the darkest spots, and it all kind of runs into white or super light. Now you can use your fingers to blend the colors, or use that paper stump that I was talking about. That's really helpful, and you don't get black fingers. And you can also be a little bit more specific, maybe even sometimes create some textures is quite helpful. So all you have to do is rub it from the darker area into the lighter one, and you can take the pencil on top of that, creating another layer, making the marks a little bit more refined if you want to. And the dark areas we're going to be using for no light, where there's no light, all the creases and all the dark spaces, and the light area obviously for where all the light hits, where's tons of light. And creating these differences in that lovely gradient will show the 3-dimensionality of our object. So here is the leaf that I found the other day that is the inspiration for our Squiggle People playground. So let's get started. We're going to start out with the outline. So remember that we're not trying to copy this exactly. This is just the inspiration. So we're roughly finding the shape here. It's kind of like 3 triangles, one down to the right and then one on top. And we want to make sure we draw in those vines to separate the shapes. That's what makes the shape interesting and gives our squiggle people a lot of stuff to explore. Now, it kind of reminds me of a croissant down here, but that's totally fine. It could technically be a croissant. Technically, if you want to, you could draw a croissant and have your squiggle people hopping around on a croissant. So let's add some folds here as well. We're just roughly using the inspiration from that funny leaf up there. And remember, don't be too neat. This is only a rough outline. So next we're going to add light and shade. And we're going to start with the HB, the lightest pencil, just shading in all the areas. And then with the B2 pencil coming in for the dark area. So there's a little hole at the tip and that little vine that comes down the side. Just getting in the dark areas. Everywhere where you can imagine there's a shadow, you can have a look at our leaf up there as well. There definitely is some shading in some of these bits that you can spot, but we're just drawing a shape, so we can just use our own idea of where the light hits and where there's shadow, where the light is sort of blocked out, and it's in all those little creases. And as you draw the shadow, you want to make sure you go dark first and then sort of fizzle it out. And there's that little hole down here, and there's more shadows there. Actually quite easy to create that 3D illusion, but it's just using a dark tone, mid-tone, and a highlight. In our case, the highlight is the white, and we're going very dark with our darkest, softest pencil, and then moving that dark color over to create that gradient. So you can see it already gets a three-dimensional look. You can tell where the light hits it and where the shadows are. And I always find that paper stop really helpful because you can be really specific, and you can go in again and create just a little bit of texture with some fine lines just for fun. Here we go. A little more here, making sure that we've got those dark spots really visible, and our outlines also still visible. Sometimes when you work into those lighter areas, the outline itself of the shape can disappear. So just making sure that is always there. Just checking the edges. And now we're going to add a shadow below our object, because it's going to be a playground. It's going to be like a structure our squiggle people can hop around on. So we want to create that illusion of a floor, that it's sitting on some sort of floor. And I'm just using the same shadow as in the picture there, and just adding a couple of more details here with the stump and the pencil, and I gave it an overall background as well, just to give it some texture. Now let's add our squiggle people. I'm using a 0.1 fine liner, and let's get started. Let's start with some people on the side there, looking towards our structure. And again, it's really only squiggles, tiny little squiggles, to create these guys. Not too much detail, just enough to see that it's a person. And they can all just stand there. One is pointing, one is lifting his arms. And let's draw one squiggle person that has already reached our structure and is touching it. What is this? What's happening here? Another one has climbed up already. And obviously the hole in the structure is the most interesting, so we definitely need two little squiggle people trying to climb into the hole, or at least peer into it. How about one over here that is peeking from underneath the structure, saying hello? And over here we can have someone just hanging out, leaning against the structure, checking messages or something. There's another hole. Let's have someone else bending down here. And here we can have someone taking a nap on the structure in that little cove. Now we need some more action. It's a playground, supposed to be a playground after all. Somebody's climbing up here. Somebody already made it and is waving down. And this kind of looks like a slide, so we can have somebody sliding down. What else? Somebody's sitting in here, in that little crease. And somebody should be at the top. There's always somebody doing a tree pose somewhere on a mountain. So let's draw a little squiggle person doing a tree pose and balancing with an umbrella. And one is coming down here, hanging down with a rope, trying to come down. So yeah, I think that those are enough. You don't want to have too many. Let's add a little scene here. You can't have a playground without a sand pit, right? So let's add a little squiggle kid sitting in a sand pit with two people watching the little guy. One sitting on this side and one sitting on the other side. So here we go. That's it. Squiggle people playground. And I hope you enjoyed drawing this and you enjoyed the shading and adding the little people to it, find an object that inspires you to draw a shape and create your own and come up with your own activities or your own little people that are populating your place. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I have tons of more sketchbook projects that I would love to share with you. If you would like to learn a little bit more about how to draw, then pop on over to my Skillshare classes. If you use the link in the description below, you can get 1 month free. Now stay creative, have a super lovely day, and I see you soon. Bye!